Well, welcome to this week's edition of Trading Bits and Bytes. A little different, but we know COVID-19 has definitely changed a lot of that up for us. We're going to have a conversation with Jeff Peterson. He's with Heartland Farm Partners as we take a look at what COVID-19 has meant to agriculture. Well, in this week's edition of Trading Bits and Bytes, Jeff and I are practicing the social distancing, and I think there's many miles between us at this point. Used to having you in the studio with us as we talk, and I think this just shows the reality of what the new norm is for a while, and we're really starting to see that trickle in to what we see, for the new norm for these markets. I hate to say it is the new norm, but as you look at it, folks are wondering, Jeff, what do we do if we've got old crop beans, old crop corn, and we haven't sold them yet?
As we dig into that question and we look at the old crop side, Susan, a week ago, that decision was a lot harder for me because we were still willing to make some sales. But as we come into this time frame right now, really what we're looking at, Susan, is I'd say if you've got old crop corn and beans, kind of regardless of what percent sold you are right now, unless you're not able to ride the market lower because of just emotionally what it'll do to you or financially what it may do to you, I think here we just have to sit tight. We have to sit tight and we have to expect to see that we haven't seen the lows yet. But I think even if the market does go lower, I think we'll get an opportunity to sell back here in higher levels down the road. This would be a time to practice some patience. We do think in areas, I think what you have to do is that one of the reasons that people are wanting or needing to sell stuff, they got to make sure that they maintain the quality of those bins. So make sure you get them cored if you haven't done that. And then the other thing gets to be cash flow. So a couple ways that you could generate some cash flow. Easiest one is if you haven't put the grain under loan yet, go ahead and get that grain put under loan at your local FSA office to generate some revenue that you need. I don't like the basis levels where we're at here right now, only because we have had a pullback on these nearby, Susan. But I think what you could do is you could still haul some bushels in, put it on basis contract, collect that advance, that usually up to about 70% to generate some cash for you on that old crop. And then at least you've still got the ability to pick up a higher price down the road. You'll hear some people talking about, well, you should sell it here and buy a call. I'm really not of that camp. I don't know that we'll get enough of a bounce in here to make those calls work, because I do think we're going to see something lower in the short term here first. But that's what I would do on those old crop bushels, Susan.
So then that kind of leads into the new crop corn and beans. Some uncharted territory we're in right now. What if you haven't even looked at that yet?
Yeah, and I know that that's a common question we run into a lot among individuals right now. And here's the way I would break it down. I'd use this as an opportunity to calculate your break evens so you know where you're at. If you haven't made any sales and you do need to move something for harvest, I would still be patient here. But knowing full well we'll see this market drift lower first before we'd see a chance to come back higher. But longer term, Susan, the thing I have to say about this is that we'll get a bounce in here in this market, but then we have to be ready to sell that bounce. Whether that bounce comes because we end up having some dry conditions this summer, or if it comes because we have too wet conditions, we have to get ready to make sales when we do see that bounce, because our opinion would be longer term. This was even before we saw the concern on the ethanol industry and the concern because of the coronavirus. We could still see lower prices in this come next harvest. So wait for now, get ready to sell in a bounce, knowing that longer term, unless something really happens, we're still in store for lower prices long term.
And the crude oil has had such a grip, shall we say, on what's been happening in these markets. Are we going to get a turnaround there?
Well, I'd like to think we are. We're getting closer and closer to not being able to go a lot lower. These prices that we're seeing now take us all the way back to the lows where they were in 2002. But this isn't a simple one. Honestly, it might be simpler to get the coronavirus taken care of than it is going to be this battle between Saudi Arabia and Russia on market share. And, what's happening right now is demand is decreasing dramatically on crude oil because not as many people are driving. And then on top of that, we've got Saudi Arabia pumping more oil as a way to get market share away from Russia. So we need to get that situation, fixed. It sounds like Trump had mentioned on a press conference today that, So far he hasn't intervened much in that. I don't know how much there is he can do, but it sounds like maybe here soon, if things don't get straightened out there, he may have to kind of help step in and coach and mentor them to get to a point where they can come to some type of agreement so that we can get these markets back on the road to recovery.
It's going to be a few steps forward, a few steps back, but we all stay united together and we can get things accomplished.
That's exactly right.
Thanks again to Jeff Peterson from Heartland Farm Partners joining me via phone this week for Trading Bits and Bytes. I'm Susan Littlefield.